Welcome to Your Pharmacy Career Podcast, proudly produced by Ravens Recruitment, the experts in pharmacy career and locum services for over 30 years. Every episode is your gateway to new opportunities in the pharmacy profession. From expert advice to inspiring success stories, we're here to spark ideas, guide your career, and help you achieve your goals. Stay tuned. The next step in your pharmacy journey starts here.
Welcome to another episode of Your Pharmacy Career Podcast. Today, I'm joined by a very special pharmacist, Jala, who has gone from mentoring hundreds of interns to becoming a voice in wellness writing and creative pharmacy leadership. I'm so excited to welcome her to the show. Jala, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Christy Lee. This is definitely not a usual kind of day for me, recording a podcast with you, but I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you so much. And thank you for your patience with the technical issues beforehand. So you can always plan these things, but sometimes it just doesn't go right.
Absolutely.
Now, Jala, I always ask everyone the same question in the beginning of our chat, and that's, why did you become a pharmacist?
And I love this question because you definitely always get asked it right after you become a pharmacist. To be honest, I actually wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, which I know is super common at the end of high school. Naturally, I've always been drawn towards science, the human body. I found that very interesting. And then as I got into my later years in high school, I started to understand what commerce was, and that started to pique my interest. So by the end of year 12, I kind of thought of something between health or finance. But then my older sister and cousins started to encourage me to consider pharmacy because they found being a pharmacist so rewarding. So the day before preferences were due, as you do, I took the plunge, and pharmacy and commerce, which was being offered by Monash University at the time, which doesn't exist anymore, won the bet. And the rest is history. Now, here I am. I'm in a really fulfilling career that I initially never really envisioned.
I love that they did a combined degree with commerce. I'm actually a huge advocate for pharmacists having some form of business kind of experience or education. So it's a shame that degree doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, I actually really agree with you. And I think business forms part of just fundamental knowledge that anyone in absolutely any field needs to understand the key principles of. And within pharmacy, whether you work in a hospital or whether you work in community, there needs to be, I think, a baseline understanding of business principles because money makes the world go around, right?
Exactly. It's one of those things, isn't it, that it's just a part of life. And yeah, you kind of have to embrace it.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether it's, you're funding services or you're budgeting for rosters, it all comes into play.
Or even just budgeting for life, like life skills.
Yes.
So once you finish your degree and did your internship, what did the early days of your career look like?
Oh, look, I look at it so fondly, but it was really definitely unsettling at times, particularly when I definitely didn't know what I wanted to do next. I interned at a large hospital here in Melbourne. At the end of that internship, you're meant to definitely know where you want to be, but for myself, I found myself back at crossroads. I didn't really want to continue on in the hospital path, but part of me didn't want to go back to community either. In the end, I landed myself back in community, managing a community pharmacy and going from there. But all of that happened at the start of COVID.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So my first year as a registered pharmacist was during COVID-19 and that was definitely interesting.
Yeah, wow. Like I remember that time, like as a pharmacist, I was working at a head office for a Benner group, but I did still work as a locum during that time as well. And I did that on purpose because I wanted to really experience what everyone was experiencing because like we were supporting the pharmacists on the ground. And when I could say to them, oh, well, actually on Sunday when I worked, they're like, oh, you get it. So yeah, it was I wouldn't even know what that would have felt like though as a first year registered pharmacist.
Yeah, look, it was, I would say it was invigorating at first. I mean, everything was new, whether it was the new protocols that we had to adhere to every day or those evolving guidelines. So there was that constant sense of urgency, and the pharmacy honestly felt dynamic and it was buzzing with energy all the time. I guess for me, it ended up being the place where I put everything I'd learned in my hospital internship into action. But this time it was in a fast-paced setting of community pharmacy. And I've personally always worked well under pressure. I find that it sharpens me. So in many ways I thrived. But after a while, that invigoration definitely started to shift. I remember taking my white coat off the end of a shift one day, and my pharmacy assistant said to me, "What is that red rash all over your chest?" And it wasn't until I looked down that I didn't actually realize how much tension I'd been carrying inside of me, because on the outside I'll continue smiling, I'll continue managing everything in the midst of the busyness, and that's how I work best, but the body definitely keeps the score.
Yeah, wow. And so, like, what did you do at that point? Like, was that a bit of maybe, I don't want to say wake up call, but maybe a point of realization?
Yeah, look, that whole experience, it tested me in every way. And don't forget, because I was still so early in my career, I was finding my feet as a pharmacist at the same time, building my confidence in the advice I was giving, managing the team, because I went straight into management, and it was navigating that unknown. But it was, everyone else was kind of in that same boat too, not to the same extent. And as a pharmacist, there is that expectation to lead. You're the leader of the pharmacy. You need to have the answers. You need to stay calm. You need to keep things moving. So yes, it was a lot for me to carry so early on in my career. Looking back now, everything's great when you look back. It made me stronger and more resilient. It's taught me the importance of trusting myself. And for me, it's defined what pillars I kind of fall on to help me back my decisions. And most importantly, it's taught me how to take care of my well-being, not just for my sake either, but for the people that rely on me at work. So whilst it was one of the most challenging times of my professional life, it was also one of the most defining moments. And, you pull through at the end. And I think the biggest part is that I've come out of that and I've learned the importance of that balance, and that taking a step back to check in with myself as well as check in with everyone else around me.
Yeah, that's so important. And yeah, you're completely right. The importance of your own well-being, and not just so that you can perform at your best, but for those around you as well, especially in healthcare. Like, we want to be at our best so that we can give the best advice and the best recommendations, especially because the people coming into the pharmacy are not at their best. And so it's kind of like, yeah, you need to be able to pick up the difference if they're not feeling well. And if you're not feeling 100%, that can be really difficult to do.
Absolutely. No, you're so right. And when I think that also comes with that emotional maturity that develops as you develop, both in your age, but also with your clinical experience and with all of your professional experiences as well.
Yeah. So I don't know if it was during this time or just after, but I believe that around the COVID time, you did something completely random with your sister. Could you tell us a little bit about what you did with your sister?
Absolutely. So normally I've got two sisters, so we would, all go to work. We were all frontline healthcare professionals. So we'd all go to work, we'd come home, and we'd be sitting around the kitchen bench as we normally would, having dinner. But now we've all had this ample extra time available to us, and we were in the middle of really tough lockdown in Victoria. So we already worked through all the usual pandemic hobbies, right? Painting, baking banana bread, hiking, the list goes on. So we actually started to get a little bit bored now, and we wanted something more. So we tapped into that entrepreneurial side of us, and chocolate it was. We started by playing to our strengths and weaknesses. We assigned each other roles. We got our cousin involved as well. And all of a sudden, we were assigning branding and production and finance and social media amongst ourselves. And amazingly, within 3 weeks, that one conversation had actually turned into a real product and brand. We built everything ourselves, from the brand to barcodes to marketing. I was involved with the brand design and packaging, and through that, I discovered I have a whole creative side of me that I'd never known about. And seeing that whole process unfold, from that idea around the kitchen bench to the product sitting on the shelf at our local family grocer, that was honestly life-changing. It completely shifted how I view business, branding, and even retail. And I don't think I can look at a product on a store shelf the same way since. But that experience, that really taught me that if you have an idea and the drive to see it through, you really can build anything from nothing.
I love that. Like, it's just from you sitting around at the kitchen table with your sisters thinking, oh, what will we do? And yeah, you found something that was a passion. I'm assuming eating chocolate is maybe a passion.
Oh, that's exactly how it started. We were eating chocolate.
I love it. I love it. And you mentioned that, like, it made you realize that there was this creative side in you. Is that something that those experiences from, I guess, doing the chocolate project or business, I should say, has those skills translated into pharmacy?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I do, and I always describe it as a side thing, but I don't think it's a side thing because I love doing this so much. But I am also a pharmacist writer. I write for a few pharmacy journals and publications. I particularly have my own column in the House of Wellness magazine. So I started writing for the House of Wellness long before I moved into the education space. And funnily enough, I think once you tap into that creative side that exists within all of us, you start to realize that boundaries don't exist so much, and you really can move, something as traditional as pharmacy. And in my mind, I'd always confined pharmacy to a hospital or a community setting. You really can start to see it filter through in so many other areas. And for me, that came when I was reading a beauty magazine, and I saw an article written by a pharmacist in there. And beauty, wellness, and health, they're all areas I've always, been drawn to. And from that, I went up to one of my senior managers at work and I asked, could this be a thing? Could I become a pharmacist writer? I did a couple of courses to help refine my skills. But from there, a column was established for a pharmacist writer, and that was for myself. So I guess that was where I got to merge my enjoyment for writing and that, for me, that creative expression, okay, with my passion for health communication and that translation of really complex ideas into digestible information. And even though with my writing, I write to 2 separate audiences. I write to the pharmacy community, so pharmacists, students, interns, and then on the other side, I write to the general public. But I think the bottom line of it is that it reflects the same passion that I have for teaching, and it's empowering people through knowledge. It's empowering people through speaking in a language that resonates with them. And for me, that's a form of my creativity.
I love the fact that you just asked the question. Like, so you had this idea and thought, oh, how can I contribute this? How can I have a go? And yeah, was brave enough to reach out to someone in your team and say, hey. And the fact that they believed in you and gave you that opportunity as well, that's really amazing. That's really, really good.
There's a beautiful quote that I live life by. The worst answer you're ever going to get if you ask is no.
Yes, it's so obvious, isn't it? But it's hard to remember.
You don't ask, it's a guaranteed no. So I guess this is where I am creating my own path in pharmacy and finding what resonates with me between all of my interests and my passions within the field.
That's so exciting. And you mentioned, like, part of the role you have at, like, writing and translating complex information into more digestible chunks in your column and the writing that you do. I guess that is also a big part of the role that you have at Chemist Warehouse leading the intern program, because essentially you're having to mentor a lot of interns, and there's a lot of information that you have to learn in your internship. I always say to people, if I had to do my internship again, like, I don't think I could get through it. Like, oh my gosh, no, thank you. I do not ever want to have to sit my written oral exam ever again.
Yes, those exams were brutal, definitely.
So how did this role come about, for you being able to actually lead the intern program? Like that's a really, really great opportunity.
Thanks so much. And look, funnily enough, I hadn't actually seen the job ad for the education pharmacist role myself. It was my mentor who'd flagged it to me. They said to me, "This sounds like you," and they encouraged me to apply for it. So I actually didn't even know that such a role existed. And I vividly remember walking into my interview, and at the end, you get asked, "Do you have any other questions?" And my only question was, "So how will I keep up my registration as a pharmacist if all I do is education?" I really, truly had naively thought that you had to dispense medicines to maintain your registration as a pharmacist. So I guess this for me was also that turning point of realizing that pharmacy is not just, confined to the boundary of community pharmacy in the sense that we know it, or in hospital pharmacy, in the sense that we know it here in Australia. But yes, no, once I started in the role, I got to intimately know the many education programs across Chemist Warehouse. But it was the intern training program that I had the greatest affinity for, which I think is really until now, because I am still in that early career pharmacist phase of my life. And so I resonate with the internship experience significantly. I've been through it in the last 6 years now. And I know what the intern struggles are. And I think that is where I have the greatest value in contributing back to, the future generation of pharmacy. But look, coordinating a program that's been developed and refined for over 45 years definitely carries significant responsibility. In addition to that, we've got a really strong national presence where we support over 700 interns nationwide every single year. And I think for me, the part of the program which resonates with me and I find truly incredible is how we continue to evolve alongside the pharmacy profession, ensuring that it remains current, that it maintains that responsiveness to industry needs at the same time. And I think that is how we, deliver that consistently high quality training and education year on year. It's not the same program that's plugged and repeated every year. We go through such extensive evaluation and measurement across what's actually happening in the pharmacy industry. Where do we see it going in the next 5 years? How do we prepare our interns of today to be pharmacists of tomorrow? And I think that for me makes me feel like it's the biggest privilege to have this role, but to also, support so many pharmacists during that.
Oh, absolutely. I think the fact that there's 700 interns, like that is massive to be leading a program with that many interns. And like you said, the program has been around for 45 years. Like it's been established for such a long time. And I know I've had friends that have gone through the program and they always speak very highly of it. And I think that's a testament to, it's not just repeating the same thing each year.
Yeah. But I think that those are the sort of values that every single pharmacist should be embodying for themselves professionally and personally. It's not the same, skills and knowledge that we want to plug year on year in everything that we do. It's that constant evolution and refining what we know and how we do it, especially in light of all of these expanded scope of practice protocols that are coming out nationwide. I think it's a very exciting time, and it's a testing time for our industry.
Oh, it absolutely is a very testing time, but it's very exciting time, I think. Like I know when I first was a registered pharmacist, so in 2014, that year when I graduated was the year that pharmacists were first allowed to give the flu vaccine. So that was like such a big shift and change. And now I hate to say that it's like 10 years later, because I don't feel like it was that long, but now vaccinations is just commonplace. And so I feel like we're almost at that same place with the staff full scope and the services, and not even just the full scope, but there's so many services that so many different pharmacies are doing now within their pharmacies that, they're just kind of finding a niche in the market or finding something that, is going to impact their customers or their patients that they're coming in. So I really think it's a very exciting time for young pharmacists and, what they're going to see and the change they're going to see in the next 10 years.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So with your role as a education pharmacist, you mentioned that one of the first questions you asked was like, how do I maintain my registration? And that's funny because like when I've been in similar roles, and first thing a lot of people say, oh, so do you still work in pharmacy so you can maintain your registration? So I think there's still a lot of, I guess, maybe this belief that people have that you've got to be physically behind the dispensary desk to be a pharmacist or for it to be valid, whether that's in a community pharmacy or a hospital pharmacy. But I think, the knowledge that we have can be used in so many different ways. And the fact that what you are doing is, in fact, the role of a pharmacist.
Absolutely, absolutely. And look, I still keep up my community pharmacy role 1 or 2 days a week. And I do that as part of my role because for us to provide education on such a large scale, I need to still have my finger on the pulse. I still need to understand those common grievances that community pharmacists, particularly within our network of pharmacies, still experience, because what I might have experienced, 5 years ago working full-time in the pharmacy may be quite different to what are the grievances now or what practice is like now. And I'll be honest, it absolutely has changed. I find it harder to actually work in the pharmacy those 1 or 2 days a week. And I guess that's, the change in my skill set happening. But at the same time, our practice as pharmacists is evolving significantly. Once upon a time, we didn't have a consult room. We had our history and we had our scripts out counter where we'd have our conversations. It wasn't until I took maybe it was my third or fourth patient for, travel health consult, once I took them into the room, that I realized what I learn in a guideline and to then implement it and to keep a conversation flowing like doctors do, who do it so well because that's the bread and butter of how they practice. But even something as simple as that, that's where, you see your skill set changing. For me, I find it very useful and vital for my role to still practice as a traditional pharmacist, in addition to my non-traditional pharmacist role.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that makes a lot of sense, especially for your role as well to, as you say, keep your finger on the pulse to understand what's happening. And the exact same reason why I still occasionally work in community pharmacy as well, because it is changing so quickly. And even just working a few days here and there, like so much changes in such a short period of time. Yeah, even if it's like a new product or something like that, or I know customers seeing something on TV and like, oh, I saw this on TV and do you have this product? And I've never heard of this. So it's quite fun, but I still enjoy it, which is really good. So Jala, throughout your career so far, like you've still got so much of your career to go, and it sounds like you've always had some really great experiences and positive experiences. But has there been any times so far that's kind of been maybe a struggle for you, like you mentioned in your first year registered? But has there been any other times where you've thought, oh, is this actually something that I should keep doing? Or maybe is there something maybe after doing the chocolate business, it's like, oh, do I do this full time? Has there been anything like that happen to you?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I always describe that as being the part where I haven't known the right next step in my early career. And it's definitely, it's been unsettling at times, and not knowing what's next can make you question everything, whether it's your direction, your decisions, even your choice of profession. And I think that it's okay to explore your options, or else you might look back and kick yourself one day, because you might find that dipping your toe into that pool that's always seemed very intriguing might actually be really cold and icy and completely not for you. But if you didn't do that, then you wouldn't have known, and that pool would continue to look intriguing from a distance, right? But I guess through that uncertainty, one thing I have been always very clear on is knowing when to say no. If an opportunity that has come my way hasn't aligned with my values or what I envision for my future path, saying no has actually been one of my easiest decisions. And I guess I may not have always known what I exactly wanted, but I've been pretty clear on what I haven't wanted. And that's helped guide me even when the bigger picture has felt unclear for me. And I guess over time, all of these small decisions have helped me carve out a path that feels right for me. But I think that going through that uncertainty about my own pharmacy path has allowed me to actually create the path that I'm on right now. And I guess it's that mindset that I had to change, where it's a clear-cut path and, you graduate uni, you become an intern, and then you're meant to do X, Y, Z, because I'd watched other people do X, Y, Z. But then you wake up one day and you realize, actually, I get to carve out my own path on this journey. And I think that's my biggest advice to interns and early career pharmacists, that at the end of the day, it's your journey. So you take on the opportunities that align with you, and you get to carve out your own path. It's not the same for everybody.
I think that is such good advice, and especially when you're early in your career, because you can feel a lot of pressure from other people, and even people that actually don't really matter to you, to be honest. And you can feel that pressure and think, oh, am I going down the right path? Or, what should I do? But I think you're right. And sometimes saying no to things, like there's a lot of advice out there about like you should always say yes to opportunities, which I do agree with. But at the same time, you don't have to say yes to everything just because something presents itself, and trusting, I guess, that gut feeling, like as I move through my career, I guess that little feeling in your gut, do listen to it if something doesn't feel right. And I think if you trust that, that's really important. So, and then, when you look back, you're like, oh, okay, this all makes sense. And there was actually maybe a higher purpose or plan. Maybe you didn't realize it at the time, because I've certainly felt that. And sometimes I've thought, oh, maybe I should have done this, or maybe I should have done that. Or maybe I shouldn't do this because people are saying that I shouldn't. But at the end of the day, it's your career. It's your life, really.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think one trap that is so easy to fall into, particularly when you're so early in your career, it's a trap, but it's also, I think, a blessing, because we're so lucky to have incredible pharmacist mentors around us who have achieved so much success over their years. But sometimes it might be either, speaking to them about their path or hearing about their successes, and I guess measuring yourself as to where they are compared to where you are and where they might have been at your age. And I think sometimes it's just taking a step back and recognizing that they would have probably definitely gone through uncertainty exactly the same way, I might be right now. And everything's beautiful in hindsight, right? Everything can be a really lovely story to share in hindsight. But once you're going through the motion of working hard and finding your path in your career, it can be unsettling. You might lose direction. But I think that working alongside your core values and what you envision as successful for you, I think that will determine, where you go.
I think that is great advice and a great way to wrap up this conversation, I think.
Hours, Christy Lee.
I know, I could as well. And I hope you don't mind me sharing this, but it just kind of what you were saying about comparing ourselves to other people is, before we started recording the podcast, you mentioned that you didn't feel that, I guess, you were worthy of being on a podcast and your career so far. But I think you definitely are very worthy. Your story has been, a delight to listen to and to hear, what you've gone through and understand, how you've forged your own path. And I think as I've listened to you chat today, that's definitely something that's shone through is, that you've stuck true to what your values are and just kind of led with that. So I think that, is how I want to end on that note. And thank you again for saying yes.
Thank you for that, Christelina. I really appreciate it. And I think where my surprise came from when I was invited to this podcast was that I guess my head is so down in nutting out what I'm doing, where I'm going, and how I'm refining my skills and my knowledge within the field. And I guess I'm just so focused that sometimes you don't actually take a moment to look up and smell the flowers and look around and see where you're at. And I guess the moment that I was invited for the podcast, that was that moment for me where I actually took a step, looked up, looked around, and now I realized that, I'm in a very privileged position to be able to influence such a large number of pharmacists across their careers and to contribute to that development as well. And to be joined with you on this podcast today. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, on that note, thank you so much for joining us today on your Pharmacy Career Podcast. Do you have any final words or anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up?
I think the biggest thing I just want to say would be to any, student or intern or early career pharmacist who's listening, who might feel completely lost, is put your head down, keep nutting it out. Say yes to opportunities that come your way, especially when you don't know where you're going, but know when to say no to the opportunities that don't align with you, and just keep going. One day you'll stop, you'll look up and you'll look around you and you'll see how far you've come, but just keep nutting it out.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Jala, for joining us, and I hope to speak to you soon.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Christy Lee.
Thanks for tuning in to Your Pharmacy Career Podcast, proudly sponsored by the Pharmaceutical Society of Australia. The PSA is committed to empowering pharmacists through advocacy, innovation, and industry-leading professional development. To become a member or learn more about how the PSA can support your career, visit www.psa.org.au. Don't forget to subscribe, share this podcast with your colleagues, and join us next time as we continue to explore your pharmacy career journey.